sometimes property managers don't want to share their stories because they're a little bit embarrassing. But if we do, people can learn. So expert property manager Cleo is going to tell us today about the chronicles of property management. Stay tuned. Fearless Cleo.
I try to be, not always the case.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. It's going to be a nice hot one today. We're getting the pool ready for the kids for this afternoon. And yeah, I think it'll be the last day of summer.
We're going for a 40-day, yeah, that's right, a 40-day degree. So it is the last day of summer today.
Yes, and it'll be good to be in the office in that cool air conditioning today.
Oh, and do we have a problem with our air conditioning? No one's ever happy with the balance.
It's never perfect for anyone. It's either too cold, too hot, it's too blowy, it's not on, it is on.
Anyway, so Cleo, couple of things off air came to mind that we've been talking about that we wanted to share with everyone, because often with property management, it's too sensitive, the topic's too hot at that moment, and I think sometimes if it's openly discussed, these issues that tenants and landlords have and how a resolution's been made, it can help people out there. But unless you sit in a tribunal, which you're allowed to do, a public tribunal, unless you go into the tribunal situation, which is like a court situation in the city, and you sit and you hear the ups and downs and the resolutions of what people have, how would you ever know, where balance is found in I guess when there's problems in property management?
It's true, and when you do go to NCAT for your own hearing, I often learn a lot from other people's hearings and how the member rules. Pre-COVID, you used to get a ruling at NCAT on the day, whereas now they hear everyone's side, they shoot you out, and you wait for a few days before they give you a ruling on paper, which I don't know, like it's a bit of anticlimactic. I used to like being there and just finding out, did I win, did I lose, right there, and I don't want to wait. So COVID did change that for that whole process, as well as calling in remotely from the office, doing it all via phone, whereas I used to really enjoy being in front of the member, in front of the tenant or the owner or whatever it was, and hash it out.
And the only reason I can think they would have done this is because too many people lost their shit.
Yeah, totally. The security guards aren't getting paid enough.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, when there's conflict resolution and when it can't be resolved between landlord and tenant, what it then does is it goes into a tribunal situation. And what's interesting is you actually walk through metal detectors and there's security guards there. And we've had some crackers. We've had death threats with between landlord and tenant, which has been scary as. We've had tell us some of the doozies. How does that work?
The interpreter. Remember that tenant that said he didn't understand English, although he did understand very well, but we had to wait for them to get an interpreter for the whole process and hearing. And then at the end, we're all in the lift going down and he was chatting in English to his friend or whatever. Honestly.
And so what are some of the chronicles of property management over the last 12 months that you've had where you can go, shit? Like I think there was one where there was the landlord brought the actual carpet into the tribunal. What happened there?
So this was a claim for over $20,000, and for those that don't know, NCAT has a cap on what you can ask for in regards to remuneration, and otherwise, if it goes over that, you have to go to local court, Manly Court or District Court, whatever. So the member can only rule on a certain amount of money. These owners had bought the property off the plan, and they had rented it out for 12 months, and they had planned to move in. And what they wanted was a brand new property, as it was when they rented it to this young family. Now, the tenants that moved in had a dog and a cat, and the owners willingly approved their application. So for those of you in PM, little tip, when you do your application and you put, your details on the front page, we always make sure we say owner, approved this on this date, this tenant. It's all documented. So they approved a cat, they approved a dog. They go back to the property and they are horrified at how the property was kept and after the tenants vacated. So the cat had obviously urinated on the carpet at one point, and it was professionally cleaned and everything. And the dog, had made a mess with dog hair and everything else. It was all through the apartment. And the owner, when we went to NCAT to show photos of damages and everything, he brought this big black rubbish bag with him on the bus the whole way to NCAT. And inside was the piece of the carpet that the cat had weed on, so the member could smell it. Honestly, and we were like, what's in the bag? And he said, well, this is the carpet. Like, I want, a photo is not going to show just what, this this stench is like. And we were like, I don't know that the member will allow you to, show that as evidence, but okay. And so, yeah, and this hearing went on for, I think it was 4 hearings. So each time we went, he brought that bag with him.
Did the member ever smell the carpet?
Never, no. He brought it there, though, as intimidation and showed, and, to be fair, the tenant was embarrassed. I think that was more the point, that he wanted to make for everyone watching.
Wow. Tell me about other ones that have come to mind. I think you're telling me about a jar the other day.
Oh my God. Look, we've had some real, maintenance, cuckoo maintenance things where a tenant's brought in a jar and asked to speak to the property manager, and the lady in reception's like, what's the jar for? And she goes, no, I want to speak. Anyway, and then, the big reveal came, and she opened the lid, and it was meant to have trapped some kind of drain smell that is happening in her apartment, and she wanted the property manager to smell the air that she captured in this jar. We were like, for days we've been taught, we still bring it up. Like, it's just one of those funny things, that you would never think.
But Claire, like sometimes, Claire, I find that, like, I know with my car, right, you have a noise in your car and then you go to recreate that noise when you're at the workshop and they're like, what are you talking about? So I could imagine in a tenant's world, sometimes it's really frustrating, whether it's a noise or a smell or something, and you're like, you don't understand, you just don't get it. And then there's a property manager like, yeah, no, I sort of don't, because it sort of can't be recreated. I don't know if you remember the tenant. We had one of my moments of chronicles of property management is we had a tenant that insisted to pay 1 and 2 cent checks.
That was wild, honestly.
So if for anyone is thinking, yeah, how's that bad? Like, this guy would turn up with 400 or 500 checks for his week's rent.
Those poor reception girls that had to enter those as well, honestly.
And we had to enter those checks because he was paying his rent. And we ended up going to the tribunal, and the tribunal member, believe it or not, didn't see that as fair and reasonable way of paying rent. And the tenant was saying, well, I'm paying it and they should be accepting it. So I figured he just didn't like us and just or the landlord, and just wanted to put us on a treadmill. And boy, this went on for months before we actually could get a ruling that he couldn't use that that way of paying because of the clerical. So we couldn't charge him for the work, but he was actually, we used to look at these checks and they're always different, written in different writing. And when we looked at it, like he must have had a free check account. But when we looked at it, we thought, we reckon one of his kids or a couple of his kids actually were writing the checks out with them all together. But some of the stuff is just unbelievable. Before we go, is there another top memorable one that you want to sign off on?
Look, to be honest, there's always cases during the day, and these stories, although funny later, at the time that you're dealing with them, they aren't, because you're trying to figure out the issue and how to. But they do make our lives, somewhat more colourful, and we can laugh about it, and it does make the job a bit lighter. But no, the carpet one for me, that takes the cake. Honestly, I've never ever had to deal with something like that. I did have one actually where the tenant had vacated and left like this gigantic bag of cash in the apartment. Like, honestly, it was like $10,000 in cash. And we went there to do the outgoing, and we're like, oh my God, look, there's this box. It was in the built-ins. We're like, what's inside? And it was money. And we're like, how do you just leave with money just in your cupboard? And we called the tenant, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I'll come and get it. Like, he'd gone up the coast. He came back. Literally, we had to keep it in the office. We had to photograph it. Like, it was really, we were worried about it. It was just something that I didn't want to have anything to do with. I was like, Well,
you feel like you've done something wrong. Yeah, it's imposing on you.
I did, I know, and it was just, no one, because we don't deal with cash in the office ever anymore. Like, it's not one of those things. You're not dealing with money. And so, and then he came and picked it up and just said thanks and see you later.
Because I actually, on my last story, I had a similar cash one where, believe it or not, we had a property rented for 10 or 15 years, and it got knocked down to be a unit block, and the excavators found 20 grand in the ceiling of the property when they were knocking the property down, and the excavators rung us and said, hey, we found this money. So we rang the landlord, who was like 75, 80. They used to run a fish and chip shop, and they were Greek. Of course. And we were like, hey, you've left, we found 20,000 the roof in your property. And they went, yes.
That's where it was.
We'll come and collect it. And it was like, can you imagine people doing stuff like that? Like, they're putting it in roofs, burying it, whatever. The chronicles of property management.
I hope we've made someone's morning a little bit lighter, and you've had a bit of a giggle at our expense.
It's all learning. And later on, I guess in the heat of the moment, it's absolutely awful. But later on, it all just levels itself off. Lisa's reminding you on one of those tribunal matters there was a punch up after the tribunal. Is that true?
Oh my God. Yeah. So there was the owner and the tenant. The third or second time we went back, we had to have a guard with us the whole time, because the owner and the tenant had an altercation outside, and we basically, we had, me and my assistant at the time together, we'd never seen that. We had security guards around us the whole time after that. It was wild. It was so wild.
Mate, I could not imagine that tribunal, Cleo, in the stories that come out of that place, the New South Wales, what do they call it now?
NCAT.
New South Wales Civil
Administrative Tribunal.
Respect to those guys.
Respect, yeah, for sure.
Respect.
It's Jerry Springer.
Day. It is, yeah. Have a great day. Thanks, Cleo. Thanks for sharing.
Bye.